matches on the first day are shown for the players that are in this group, the ones that we're casting today. Their opponents are going to see them play. They're going to see their decks play, but they're not going to get that favor returned, as half the tournament is not shown on stream. Just to go into the classes real quick, we see here both players started with Druid. Both players are running Druids. Both players are running Mages, and Sjow has the Rogue and the Warrior, of course, while Kolento has the Hunter and the Paladin. Kolento strategically, I suppose, banned the Warrior of Sjow, and Sjow banned the Mage of Kolento. So Sjow is running from Druid, Mage, and Rogue, and Kolento is running Druid, Hunter, Paladin. Both players opening with Druid. It seems like at least one player is running Control Druid with the Harrison. So yeah, if you're running Harrison and Zombie Chow, you're probably not running combo. But here, what I believe is Sjow. I believe it's his turn. He might actually be running a traditional combo Druid. All of those cards belong in combo. They also belong in the Control Druid, but it's often difficult to tell. About half the cards are shared between the two. Yeah, so it is Kolento who's playing the Control Druid, probably very similar to what we had just seen Nimsh play. There's not too much variation on that deck, and the variation mostly comes down to basically picking your favorite legendaries. It's a deck where the base is the traditional Druid cards with Control, with Wrath, Swipes, Keeper the Grove, Ancient of Lore, Innervate, and it has the additional base of the multitude of taunt creatures, but the remaining 5 or 6 cards are basically your favorite one of legendary dudes. So that's mostly where the variety comes from, and often that is dictated by the meta. So we see the Harrison Jones in hand. Probably Kolento expected to face a lot of weapon decks in the tournament. Alright, so we see an Innervate Piloted Shredder play. Pretty interesting. Certainly aggressive. He picks up on the fact that Sjow doesn't actually have anything to play, so he wants to play more things, as mentioned in the last Druid versus Druid matchup, that it's just very difficult to come back from a board disadvantage in this mirror match. Well, the only play he could have is basically to swipe face, and that's not a very good play, so we're just going to see the hero power pass. But the Innervate does make it so he has that board lead. He does more likely get favorable trades, and he gets the push for a little bit of extra damage. So it looks like Sjow might actually be playing the double combo Druid. We haven't seen a single control card yet, but again, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. There are some decks that are a little bit in between, but I think he is playing a traditional double combo Druid. It is a very good tournament deck in my opinion, so it's not much of a surprise here, but we have seen this deck fall quite a bit on ladder just because there are a lot of decks that are running a lot of annoying taunts and running a lot of aggression at the same time. Okay, there's Mech Mage. So there's Mech Mage on ladder. There's a lot of Mech Mage on ladder. I mean, in tournaments, your opponent's going to have like maybe one Mech Mage. Maybe 1 out of 3 of his decks are that. So that's not really the same in tournaments. Like, you know, while even if everyone is running Mech Mage, all you need is a counter to Mech Mage to beat up the Mech Mage, and as long as your Druid does well against the other classes in the meta, you're going to be just fine. So that's really the difference that we're constantly seeing in the tournament scene. Now, I have to say that I think this matchup, as I mentioned, kind of on nuances, that it does favor the taunty Druid. It does seem that the taunts shut out a lot of the finishing possibility of the double combo Druid. So I do think Kolento is favored. We do know that Kolento is ahead to begin with, so that also suggests that he is favored. But he does have some clunky turns here. And you can never really count out a combo druid, because some of the damage they can pull out is quite obscene. So here, if he wanted to play in a very controlling manner, he would... well, the opponent's at 18 health. I think you just play creatures and just go for it. Okay. Yeah. He could have burned a swipe, but again, it's quite weak. You have to keep in mind that while Kolento has his suspicions, he probably himself doesn't know what Sjow is playing, and some of the, in fact, it's quite common, I think, among the slow druid decks that play Black Knight. So going into turn 6, taking that extra damage on your Druid of the Claw does seem quite reasonable, which I believe is the idea behind it. He doesn't really hold back the second swipe at all. Wow, what terrible, terrible 2-drop there. That may actually be one of the worst 2-drops. So I guess a 1 health minion would be strictly worse because he'd end up doing more damage to face. So I guess it could have been a little bit worse. Sjow here with a very easy swipe hero power. You can wild growth if you want, but I don't think that's a reality. Just holding off on wild growth 2 turns does get you that extra card, but do you really have those 2 turns is the question. I don't think the wild growth is going to matter too much, so I'm not surprised to see him not play it. Here, the Wrath draw is excellent. You can Wrath a bomb for 1, you can hero power the other bomb, and then you can big game the 7/7 without a risk of losing your big game hunter to the bomb damage at a later time. So 1, that's the best possible result for the first one. That's very lucky. 3. So overall he fared quite average there. The boom bots have a damage range of 1 to 4, so their average damage is 2.5 times 2. That's basically 5. Getting hit for 4 is right around what you'd expect. Oh man, the damage is starting to stack up. Man, you gotta push for some. Wow, he's drawing. I feel like you'd want to Ancient of Lore heal yourself. I mean, you're dead to combo no matter what here. I mean, what could you even draw to stop combo? I don't think there's anything. So I think the idea is that you want to just pump out the board while not being too threatened in terms of a lethal situation. Okay. So I mean, this play suggests that he doesn't value Innervate too much, which might mean that he actually doesn't have another Savage Roar, but that's weird because his entire deck resembles the double combo Druid. Because he basically just innervated a draw. They spent 2 cards to draw 1 card. Either that or he's looking for a very specific one. What specific card could he be looking for? I can't imagine one. I mean, even if it was a taunt, you'd still be dead, wouldn't you? Yeah. Even if he had a Druid of the Claw, he would still die to combo. I don't really like that Wild Growth play. Mostly because it burns the Innervate, and sometimes you really need that Innervate to do a crazy amount of damage. Alright. How much damage does Kolento have? He's got 6 on board that gets pumped up to 7. He has 6 in hand, and he can hero power. So he has 14. If Sjow heals himself, he's going to be 2 out of range of lethal. If he doesn't heal, he's actually dead. Right? I feel like heal in face is the only option here. Crocodile. It just feels like there's no win scenario here. Alright. So this is going to be an Azure Drake swipe play. Very easy. Kolento's got that Savage Roar himself. It might be that both players are actually playing very similar decks. It's just that Kolento drew that Harrison that kind of threw off my guess a little bit. He does have to do the Savage Roar clear to stay alive. He could also... No, he would still die with Cenarius, yeah. That was the only way that he would stay alive. Have one more turn. Kolento is in a commanding lead here on life, and that's significant in this matchup. Again, Cenarius, and again, Sjow has to do something drastic here. So there we see the double combo. So Sjow is, in fact, running the very standard double combo Druid deck. And we also know that this match is going to Kolento. Wow, with 2 Savage Roars now. Now, it is common that a player would run 2 Savage Roars and only 1 Force of Nature to combo. So we don't know if Kolento is really running the double combo Druid deck, but we do know that he actually disguised it very well. And that's very important to know. You can't really disguise your deck past the opening games, especially if they are live cast like they are now. But because Sjow doesn't really know what he's up against, as he just played Kolento, he won't really know that he's playing against the combo Druid. I feel all the cards Kolento played are very standard in the very common taunt Druid, basically. The Cenarius, all the standard Druid cards. So Kolento has his combo very well disguised, and that is extremely important because Sjow might make future decisions where he would decide not to play around the high spike damage that the deck might be able to do. So we might see Kolento take a pretty surprise game in a very unfair way here in just a second. In terms of the remaining classes, Sjow with his Warrior Band, with his Druid defeated, has to rely on Rogue or Mage. Now, most Mage decks these days are the mech variety, and most Rogue decks these days are the oily variety. Though I can't really pinpoint exactly what kind of deck Kolento is playing, it does seem to have some combo potential, it does seem to have some early game presence. So I think in the very worst case, Kolento would have a fair chance against whatever Sjow has to put out. I'd probably give him, in the very worst, just below even in the matchups. And because Sjow is really lacking that crucial information on what deck your opponent is playing, I feel like he's in a really bad spot. I think all things stacked up, Sjow is at best like 50-50 on any deck, on any matchup that he plays here. And that's not where you want to be if you're down 1 game. If you're down 1 game, you want to be the player that you know what your opponent has, you play the counter to really increase the odds that you'd move into the next match on even terms. So we see the Mech Mage hand. The hand's really not all that good. If you're playing Mech Mage, what you want are really aggressive creatures in the early game. He does have some aggressive creatures. The Coin Goblin Blast Mage is going to make up for a lot. And it basically needs to, because you don't really want to start the game with direct damage. So sometimes when you play a controlling mage and you play a freeze mage, for instance, the frost bolts, or maybe in some cases even the fireballs, are removal spells. But the way this deck plays out is pretty simple. You want to do a little bit of aggression through creatures. You got to push for some creature damage, and then you finish with spells. And you don't really want to have the finishers in your hand at the start because they just end up being dead cards. Well, he does not go with the Goblin Blast Mage. That does surprise me a little bit. And a swipe draw. He gets a 1 health minion off the Shredder. It could be a clear, but it wouldn't work all that well. Oh, wow. Wow, what a nice fit there. Alright, well here in Show's position, I think you just go for the Blast Mage. I think the chance that it hits a minion twice is roughly 60%. And if it does hit it twice, more than likely your Snow Chugger can deal with the remainder. Oh, that's that remaining percent. Oh god. Wow. This game is not really working out for Sjow very well. Alright, so you're Kolento here. You want to Dr. Boom next turn. You want to do it on an empty board. You don't want to take damage. So you probably want to keep her for damage, Hero Power Face, and trade with the Ooze. Alright, now Sjow is really running low on creatures. Again, his hand is just stacked with spells, and you certainly don't want to use spells on creatures that seem harmless. So here, the play is just the Goblin Blast Mage, and if you Goblin Blast Mage, that's really good enough if you're Kolento to drop that Dr. Boom. I think it's Boomster time. Yep, and without any hesitation at all, we see the Boom drop. And again, you have to keep in mind this is certainly not over. Like, Sjow has this finishing damage. Yeah, it looks like he's choosing to use it here. I was gonna say that there's some chance he can win the game by just going all out face. Savage Roar be too much? No, Savage Roar would not be too much. He went all out face, he'd have to draw... You have to draw Fireball next turn. Yeah. But if you did that, Kolento would Ancient Allure, so that wouldn't really work. Oh man, I missed that bomb, but it looked like it sucked. Oh no, I think that bomb was for 2 damage to the Blast Mage, but I didn't get a good look. I think you're healing yourself is fair. I don't think there's much of a need to draw. He does go for the draw. Okay. I just feel that if you heal yourself there, you pretty much pull yourself too far out of range. Oh my god! He would have drawn the Fireball. That is some scary stuff, guys. He has so much damage next turn. If Sjow went face... Oh wow, double Savage Roar. If Sjow went face and Kolento didn't heal, they probably would have if he had seen those cards played. Okay, so Fireball, Frostbolt, Frostbolt is 12. And then you have the 2 damage on board. Yeah, but the thing is, you're taking so much damage next turn. Oh god. The only way you really survive this is by Fireballing the 7/6 and Frostbolting the 4/2. That makes the Savage Roar do 4 damage apiece. And that would max out the damage at 5 plus 4 plus 2. Nope, nope. 5 plus 8 plus 2. Still not dead though. He'd be at 2 life. But again, no real win condition from that point. Narius just has too much health to deal with it. No, but it is 5 plus 4 plus 2 because this Snow Chugger would end up doing the face hit. So with the face hit, that does prevent the Druid from doing the Savage Roar damage. We're going for the draw. And he knows this is a standard mech mage. Sometimes it's a good idea to put out your bigger taunt. If like Druid of the Claw technically has more life, but I mean there's no polymorph in here. And he knows both fireballs have been used. Much harder to deal with 2 taunts than just the one slightly bigger one.
Well played.
This game is pretty easily going to go to Kolento. Kolento is going to be able to Druid of the Claw, Innervate, and double Savage Roar in the following turn, even if Sjow didn't think that Kolento had lethal. So Kolento takes the second game as well. It seems like the Druid might actually run over Sjow here. Sjow is having to fall on his final deck, and what is it here? It is the Rogue. Rogue versus Druid. The funny thing is, Kolento still hasn't shown the Savage Roars. So, I mean, Sjow might have some suspicion because he hasn't seen too many of the cards that you often see in the Taunt Druid. But man, that is a little crazy. I think I would have opted to not concede there if I was Sjow, just to see how Kolento would be able to finish. Now, in terms of the matchup, the Rogue is another one of those classes that can just be anything. With the oilified Blade Flurries, sometimes those get pretty monstrous, and it can really be a blowout against anything. Why it's considered such a strong deck these days, but you have to consider that in general, it's pretty tough to deal with some of the big Druid creatures, so we'll have to see. Here we are, Game 3, Sjow vs Kolento. Kolento up 2 with his undefeated Druid deck, which seems to be like a double Savage Roar. We haven't even seen Force of Nature, but usually when you're running 2 Savage Roars, you are running 1 Force of Nature.
Job's done.
Seems to be kind of like a mid-range half combo Druid. And it looks like Sjow is playing the very typical Oil Rogue here. Double Violet Teachers. This deck actually suffers from having too few creatures in some situations. It ends up being the case that you have a lot of buffs, you have a lot of burst, but you have no creature to buff or burst with, and you often have to rely on your weapon. So with Druid having taunts, having removal, and we know, and Sjow knows that Kolento has the Harrison, this is definitely a match that Sjow was hoping to avoid. Alright, so it would make sense to sack the Zombie Chow and Hero Power, as you don't really have any good plays even with the coin. And you want to pop that Zombie Chow Death Rattle when your opponent has as much health as possible to nullify its gain. And because of the Farseer, the gain was completely nullified in this case. Now, the Vile Teacher is one of those cards that you really have to remove right away, but with the swipe in hand, there might be a little bit of wiggle room here. I'm thinking it might actually be good enough to play the second Shredder and go face. Yeah, Kolento agrees here. Does make the play. If you did not have the swipe, you would absolutely have to remove the Vile Teacher. It would just be too scary otherwise. So here we're probably going to see is a Vile Teacher attacking one Shredder, seeing what comes out, and then ending up with a spell damage Fan of Knives. Along with the hero power to finish off the other Shredder, of course. It'll be a very effective play if the remnants of the first Shredder ends up being a 2 health or less creature. Ooh, that is painful. Really painful. I think you just... I don't know, I think you just killed the totem now. Yeah. God. Man. It seems like Sjow's not really too lucky today, guys. This is the Kolento game. Board control, start to finish. Life lead, start to finish. And here we go, man. Like, you're so low on life as the rogue. I mean, that turns out to be a pretty good 2-drop, but you don't know that for sure. Like, what if your opponent has a silence? Savage Roar, Savage Roar. That's so funny. Well, I think here you just draw. I think you coin out the draw. Coin out the Ancient of Lore, that is. I don't think the Azure Drake is good enough. It looks like Kolento likes the Azure Drake, but... Oh, maybe he's saving the coin to try to combo earlier. Maybe maybe he's actually running 2 Force of Natures and he just hasn't drawn them at all in these games. I mean, if that's the case, I can absolutely see the reasoning for wanting to Azure Drake, but otherwise, it seems like the Ancient of Lore would otherwise be the clear winner. I mean, there is the option that you'd be able to Savage Roar or Drew the Claw next turn, but you wouldn't have lethal for that anyway, so... Okay. Oh, there's the Boomster. Alright, so now things can start happening on the rogue side. This is going to have to be an Eviscerate play. He does have the option to prep Eviscerate, but it's probably not worth it. You only really get 2 mana out of the prep, where if you save it for next turn, you might be able to get a 3 mana prep savings from the Tinker Oil. Here comes the Boomster. Man, is that guy devastating. So you can't clear with just the Tinker Oil, can you? No. You'd have to use the Southsea deckhand. So I think you have to you'd have to weapon up, then you have to prep the Tinker Oil. That's 3 mana. Then you can attack whatever you want. Then play the Southsea deckhand. Actually, no. You could finish with the SI7. You don't have the deckhand here. Oh, wait. Oh my god. I didn't see it. He has lethal. He has lethal with the Eviscerate in the Blade Flurry. Holy cow. Sjow just stole that one. And there's no chance of losing. The most the boom bots could hit him for is 8. Oh man. That's a lesson for you guys. And for me, man. Always got to count that lethal. Always thinking about the defensive board position, but sometimes, what was that? Oh god, that was so much damage. And 6, 8. That's 26 damage, guys. Holy cow. Alright, that was a game. That was a real finish. Very well spotted, very well executed by Sjow. Brings him some way back in this. Sjow has to defeat 2 more of Kolento's decks. Kolento finally dropping the Druid. Kolento with his Mage Band has the Hunter and Paladin to rely on. And honestly, like, both of those are reasonable. Like, the Rogue can beat both of those. The Hunter does quite well against Rogue, and some types of Paladin do pretty well against Rogue, but I think in general, Rogue does better against most Paladin decks. So I think here we'll see Kolento with the Hunter. The funny thing is, even though we saw 3 games played of the Druid, we still did not see Savage Roar cast a single time. Alright. We don't see the mulligan choices, but we do see the Hunter. Though we see the Explosive Trap, we see the Abusive Sergeant. We have a pretty good idea on what type of Hunter this is. I'd imagine that this Hunter does quite well against Rogue, but again, Rogue is the class that has some chance against basically everything. Sometimes it's not a very high one, but if he does take the Hunter match, if Sjow gets lucky enough, if he plays well enough, against the Paladin, I think he's going to have a pretty easy time. But here we have the option of the Creeper, the Mad Scientist. The Mad Scientist is probably going to fish out only the other explosive, so you probably want to get that out as fast as possible before you end up drawing the other explosive trap, as was the case in our opening game at Hero Cards 5. You really gotta make the best use of that as you can. Now that surprises me. Why would you not try to trigger that trap first? Why would you not backstab and then just attack? You still kill it with backstab. There's really no downside. If it's freeze, it gets frozen anyway. The only reason you'd want this is to intentionally draw a card and lose the creature. Since you're gonna draw the card anyway, it does seem like a misplay. That has to be a misplay from Show's side. But maybe I'm just dumb, I don't know. Alright, so we start seeing some crappy creatures from the Hunter side of things, but all this little chip damage tends to stack up pretty quickly. So there's no telling which way this is going to go quite yet, but it does seem like the Rogue has established some level of control in this game. Now, from what I can see, there's no actual way of killing that Vile Teacher, but with Unleash in your hand, the truth is you don't really care. I guess you could kill the Vile Teacher with the Juggler and the knives from the Unleash and the Spider. But there's no way that you'd really waste all those cards just for the Vile Teacher. Alright, so in this position, I think the Loatheb is the card you want to play. I think you play Loatheb, kill the 2/1 with your dagger, and hit 6 damage face. Okay. There's that trap. Both explosives down now. Seems to want to go with the Azure Drake. We know the Azure Drake will be punished by Unleash, and we know that if he plays Loatheb, he's going to have a commanding lead in this game. That's why I think the Loatheb is really the play here. Huh. Chose not to kill the 2-1. I don't see the reasoning behind that at all. I guess you'd want to Blade Flurry, but I don't like it. But here the abusive is going to come down. Oh, I see. He wants to juggle up some more. I kind of like the abusive first, though. But now there's no room for it. Haunt. Okay. And I think that was a misplay as well. I think you'd want to try for the last juggle rather than suiciding a 1-1 before playing your final creature. Play is very confusing for me. I feel like Show's sloppy Azure Drake drop really walked into that. I think had he played the low Theb, this game was almost certainly his. And now we're in a situation where it's pretty hard to tell. Like, Kolento's winning the life lead by a lot, but he is out of steam completely. He's basically got nothing. If he gets a Huffer, though, it's over. Nope, Misha. You can't really play the abusive. You have to play the abusive on a turn that he instantly triggers on something that attacks.
Job's done.
Okay. Well, now we see the low Theb. Okay. I don't think there's like a one single card that Kolento can win with right away here. But next turn, just the Huffer alone will be enough. Second sprint draw is so bad. I mean, in this stage, if you're the rogue, you know there's a lot of damage coming your way. You have to try to seal out this game as fast as possible. He's thinking about the fact that Unleash would trigger on an extra one, but you really can't be caring much about that in this position. You basically have to Southsea deckhand, attack weapon up. Next turn, you're probably going to need an Eviscerate off of your sprint or draw to win. Okay, well it has to be Huffer. It has to be Huffer or Misha. If it's Leok, Kolento's going to lose. Wow, and it is Huffer. Huffer for the win. Oh man. Kolento seals the set. It ends 3-1. There was some spectacular hope for Sjow to win that set, but nope. The Huffer. Oh man, do I hate that little guy. Alright guys, well that is the match. That concludes the C match of round 1. Kolento beats Sjow 3-1. We also know that RDU ended up beating Masan. So tomorrow, our second match will be Kolento versus RDU. Two pretty big names in Hearthstone. Should be interesting to see how that game is going to end up. We're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to see our third live casted match between Life Coach and Dog. We're going to need a few minutes for those guys to set up and for us to set up around them. So in the meantime, we will be taking a little bit of a break. I just want to mention again that if you missed any of the matches will be replayed at the end of the live cast after the show here in a bit. And if you don't want to stay up for those, in some time, all the matches, all the games will be uploaded on the YouTube channel corresponding to this broadcast, which is youtube.com/chaos contingency. That's KAOS contingency. So check it out. We'll see you guys in a bit.